No need to adjust your screen, it is not mirrored. It's me coming to you from the other side of the car today because I'm driving a right-hand drive vehicle. Yes, I'm sitting on the other side of the car, driving on the other side of the road because we're in a special place today. And that's because I'm at my cultural heritage site, the home of my parents, the beautiful twin island of Trinidad and Tobago. I'm Karleem, this is Trinidad. Let's jump right into it. So Trinidad and Tobago is a twin island Caribbean nation in the Southern Caribbean, just 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela. Once a British colony, it's gained its independence in the 1960s and has grown and prospered since then. However, there are certain things that have remained from the British influence, and you'll see some of that today, including driving side of the road. Trinidad drives on the left side of the road, meaning most cars here are right-hand drive, and you'll see a little bit about that today. There are three things I want to cover about Trinidad and Tobago today. One, what it's like to drive right-hand drive on the left side of the road, especially as someone who's used to driving left-hand drive on the right side of the road. Two, what's the car market like, including the different types of cars that are here. And three, what it's kind of like to just drive around here and what you need to know if you want to drive in Trinidad or Tobago. So over the past 30 years that I've been traveling here to Trinidad and Tobago, I've seen the country develop a lot, including the amount of cars that have been on the roads here. Back in the day, I don't remember seeing so many cars, so many people didn't have cars. But nowadays, many people own cars and there's a lot more traffic. Historically, the driving culture in Trinidad was quite relaxed. Not a lot of rule enforcement, not a lot of following of the rules, not a lot of following of speed limits. And I've seen that change a lot, especially in recent years. As you have more cars on the road, more people driving, you need to have more stricter rules, more strict enforcement. And I've seen that a lot more here. Including this time visiting, I've noticed that there's speed cameras on the highways, which is crazy to me to see. So first, a little bit about right-hand drive. So I've driven right-hand drive on the left side of the road a few times, and I've gotten quite used to it now. As you've seen in previous videos, I've driven my left-hand drive car on the left side of the road in the UK. That's kind of a different experience altogether because it's quite a familiar vehicle. In this case, you're on the other side of the car and also driving on the other side of the road, which is another layer of complexity. But I would encourage people who are used to left-hand drive and driving on the other side of the road to try it and become familiar with it because it's a helpful skill to have. The trick is everything is opposite. So you are looking here for your rear view mirror instead of over here. Your mirrors are kind of, you're not used to looking in different places, but also everything you're driving is opposite. You're on the left side of the road, a left turn is the equivalent of a right turn is the equivalent of a left turn on the other side of the road. So it's just thinking through everything in opposite manner. But once you become familiar with sitting on this side of the car and being away from the curb, and you start to apply that to different contexts, it becomes more natural. But the key is practice makes perfect, and I would encourage people to try that. If you've never driven right-hand drive, you're used to left-hand drive, give it a try. One other tricky thing about right-hand drive vehicles is sometimes the turn signals are opposite. So in this Kia Rio, the turn signal is on the right side of the steering wheel and the wiper stalk is on the left side of the steering wheel. However, in European cars, which including one that I rented while I was here, the turn signal and wiper stalk are the same as if they were on a left-hand drive car. So something to kind of pay attention to. It's a bit tricky and it becomes a little bit cumbersome sometimes. The general rule is the Asian market vehicles tend to have the turn signal swap. The European market vehicles keep the turn signal and wiper stalks the same, whether it's right-hand drive or left-hand drive. So let's touch on the car market here in Trinidad and Tobago briefly. So like many other Caribbean nations, Trinidad relies on imported vehicles. Vehicles aren't really produced or manufactured or assembled here anymore. They were at one point in history. So a lot of the vehicles here, of course, are right-hand drive, and they tend to be imported from Asia. So Japanese cars, and also a lot of foreign used cars from different markets across Asia, Singapore, Malaysia, etc. Most of the cars here are right-hand drive because, of course, that is the way that the roads are designed. But there are some left-hand drive cars here that do exist. Left-hand drive cars either serve specialty purpose, such as hearses or limos, but also privately owned left-hand drive cars are possible. Trinidad allows for cars to be imported, especially for expats who have previously lived in Trinidad and now are moving back. They're allowed to import their cars, even if they are left-hand drive. So occasionally you do see left-hand drive cars around, and it is kind of funny to see because they are driving on the other side of the road, but they are left-hand drive. In fact, I actually saw a Lincoln Town car recently in Tobago, which you can see here. So funny to see that driving around, especially it's a very big American car. Most of the cars are right-hand drive, and the Asian brands, the Japanese, Korean brands tend to be the most popular, especially recently. Hyundai and Kia have really taken off here in this market. I haven't really seen many electric vehicles, of course, although I have seen a couple driving this trip. Of course, the infrastructure is not really there. This is really a market for petrol and diesel cars, especially as Trinidad is one of of the oil-producing countries in the region. Cars are a very practical tool here, so you see a lot of older cars that are still on the road because they serve a very specific purpose for the person. It's very unaffordable to get a new car. Even the foreign used cars I mentioned can be quite expensive. There's different duties and taxes that need to be applied. So people tend to hold on to their vehicles for quite a long time. Because as I've noticed, having a car here is really essential, an essential way to get around. Of course, there are taxis, but there's not really a public transportation infrastructure. So my advice for the average driver, if you want to drive in Trinidad or an equivalent sort of Caribbean country, familiarize yourself with right-hand drive and left-hand traffic if you're not used to that. If you're used to driving left-hand drive and on the right side of the road like mainland Europe or the United States or Canada, get accustomed to that. Everything is the opposite. Pay attention to the roads, pay attention to the drivers, look for potholes, make sure you can navigate around them without inconveniencing other drivers. Another thing I forgot to mention is in Trinidad, people tend to stop on the side of the road abruptly, either pick up passengers, drop off passengers, stop for a food vendor. So look out for that as well. Pay attention to that on the side. And you may have to do it yourself if you want to stop and enjoy some local cuisine or a local coconut stand. It's worth it, but again, pay attention to your surroundings and make sure you're not inconveniencing other drivers. I think with those tips, anybody can have a really enjoyable time here in Trinidad and Tobago. We had a really nice time driving around Tobago, even with those winding roads, beautiful views. Even with the potholes, it was well worth it, and it's always enjoyable for me to come back here. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you prefer right-hand drive or left-hand drive? Personally, I do prefer left-hand drive. I think it is more common across the world, although countries that were under the British influence or places like Japan do tend to drive right-hand drive, so it's not uncommon. It's a bit regional, but for me, I prefer left-hand drive. But let me know what you think in the comments below, and let me know if you have any questions about driving in Trinidad and Tobago. And until the next time, thanks so much for watching. And of course, while you're waiting at a traffic light, it's great because you've got the food vendors coming up to your car selling drinks and fruits and even cotton candy in this case, which I don't think I've ever seen before. Oh.
Making a sale?
Yep, he's selling some water. Quick, the light's green. You gotta go quick, man, go quick. There you go.